There we go. All right, I am Kristen Toole. I'm the chair of the Police Station Building Committee. We also have on the Zoom tonight committee members Bill Mayen and Bill Cook, as well as non-voting members, Ambulance Director Jen Weber and Police Chief Rob Dirksen. The meeting agenda tonight includes a slideshow presentation of the Public Safety Complex project, followed by a few updates, including reading the finalized warrant articles for the special meeting that is now scheduled for March 9th. Tonight's meeting is for informational purposes only. There will not be a vote of any kind taken here tonight. And after I give those updates after the slideshow, we will open up for public comment. So there is a chat feature here. I'm going to type into the chat. If you have questions during the slideshow, you are welcome to type them into the chat. And then after the video slideshow, I'll be able to read those questions and answer them here on the call. I won't be able to answer questions on the slideshow because the chat is hidden while the slideshow is running. So just be patient and we will get to those questions after the slideshow. And I will go over public comment once we are done watching this video. So I think we are ready to start this slideshow presentation. There we go. Let me just make this. All right. Welcome to the presentation about Lanesborough's Public Safety Complex. Let me just share this slideshow. There we go. I am Kristen Toole, the chair of the Police Station Building Committee. Today is February 2nd, 2023, and I'll be talking through the main points of the project so far. I have presented updates at nearly all of the select board meetings since March of 2022. Those meetings are recorded and viewable on the town website. The Police Station Building Committee page on the town website includes all meeting minutes as well as other documents relating to the project for the community to review. There will be multiple in-person presentations scheduled in the coming weeks where community members can ask questions, with those dates shared later in this slideshow. The proposed public safety complex includes police headquarters, ambulance EMS office, sleeping quarters and garage space, an emergency management center, and an in-house training room. Why does Lanesborough need a public safety complex? Both Lanesborough Police and Lanesborough Ambulance are paid staff of town employees, and neither department has long-term professional and adequate workspace. The former police station at 8 Prospect Street was unsafe and unfit. The property was ruled out for a new building in 2022 after a deed restriction was located, stating the parcel could only be used as a park. The officers moved to a temporary location that is rented until August of 2024 using ARPA funds, that is clean and free from mold and rodents, but it is too small. The building is inadequate size to accommodate all needed evidence, storage, and other law enforcement agency needs. Lanesborough Ambulance has historically been part of the volunteer fire department, but now is a paid staff of town employees. They have outgrown space at the volunteer fire station, and the building, which is not owned by the town, cannot be retrofitted to provide adequate space. The fire department needs to regain space currently used by the ambulance for fire service purposes. By combining police and ambulance services rather than focusing on one department at a time, it opens more possible funding opportunities through grants, state and federal sources. The Police Station Building Committee has been meeting regularly since March of 2022 to gather data and assess the best possible path forward for this project. Let me introduce you to the team. Bill Calderwood is a contractor with experience in project management. Glenn Story is a former town employee with the DPW, a longtime first responder, and current president of the Volunteer Fire Association. Bill Cook is a retired architect with extensive knowledge of the building process, materials, codes, and regulations. The former Lanesborough Police Chief, Tim Sorrell, was a committee member until June of 2022 when he was elected to the Select Board. The Citizens Interest Form process was reopened at that time to fill the committee seat, and Bill Mahan was appointed. Bill has 20 years' experience in law enforcement and knowledge of requirements for emergency service buildings. As I said previously, I'm Kristen Toole. I'm the committee chair. I have grant writing and fundraising experience. Our non-voting members are Ambulance Director Jen Weber and Police Chief Rob Dirksen. The Police Station Building Committee was formed by the Lanesborough Select Board in March of 2022 to assess proposed site locations and building plans for a new police station. In August of 2022, it became clear there was a need for long-term space for Lanesborough's ambulance service as well. As I mentioned in a previous slide, by combining the two services, more funding opportunities become available, and a shared facility lessens overall costs and ongoing expenses for both agencies. The committee has made a lot of progress over the last 11 months, and here are some key points. Because of the condition of the former police station at 8 Prospect Street, moving our officers to a safe work environment became a priority when the committee was formed. We assessed site locations for a temporary space for Lanesborough Police to work from during the project planning and construction. We secured a temporary police station leased from a private owner until August of 2024 using ARPA funds at no burden to the taxpayers. Committee members visited a combined police and ambulance facility in Barre, Mass. To see the use of space and collect data about what worked and what they would have done differently. We assessed several properties and found the proposed site location for the public safety complex at 405 South Main Street in Lanesborough. We acquired a gift of $150,000 from Baker Hill Road District for the property purchase. We have secured $1 million in state bond funds towards this proposed project. We've requested Lanesborough Fire and Water District waive their $3,000 hookup fee and had that request granted. We've discussed low-interest grant and loan programs with representatives from the USDA, and the committee is in ongoing conversations with local, state, and federal representatives about funding sources to continue lowering the tax burden of this project. The Space Needs Assessment is a document compiled by architect Brian Humes based on current Lanesborough demographics, police and ambulance needs, town data, and projections for the next 20+ years. The needs assessment states Lanesborough's space need for the public safety complex at a minimum of 7,560 square feet. A needs assessment is required for USDA grant and loan programs to ensure the building will remain fit for the life of the loan terms. The full needs assessment is available on the Lanesborough Town website for those who would like to read through it. Please visit www.lanesborough-ma.gov and click on the Government heading, then click Boards and Committees in the drop-down menu and click the Police Station Building Committee subpage. The proposed site location for Lanesborough's public safety complex is 405 South Main Street in Lanesborough, the driving range area of former Skyline Country Club. The site of the former police station at 8 Prospect Street was ruled out last year after many concerns with the site, including environmental factors, lack of space for a septic system, and a deed restriction stating the parcel could only be used as a park was found. Many possible sites, including 333 South Main, the town-owned parcel on Prospect Street, and a privately owned parcel across from Laston Park, were considered before moving forward with 405 South Main Street. This parcel was the most highly rated by architect Brian Humes when he did his initial assessment of properties in town for a new police station a few years ago. 405 South Main Street is a central and accessible location with multiple egress for emergency vehicles. It is a 9-acre parcel with sufficient space for future town projects if needed, If Lanesborough needs to build a new fire station or DPW building down the road, there will be town-owned land here to do that. The building was able to be designed and oriented using the existing tree line and landscape to keep costs down, including having the ambulance bays and Sallyport directionally facing the morning sun to decrease the risk of ice building up in those essential areas. Utility hookups are accessible at this location, keeping costs down. The Baker Hill Road District has provided a gift of $150,000 so the parcel can be purchased at no taxpayer burden. Taxpayer approval at a special meeting will be needed to accept the gift from Baker Hill Road District and to approve the property purchase. The proposed building plans were designed by Brian Humes, a professional architect with a career of experience designing public safety buildings. Mr. Humes designed the combined police and ambulance facility in Barre, Mass. The committee members were able to tour to see how the space was used and how we could adapt the floor plan, including the use of shared spaces. These plans are based on our town's data and demographics compiled into a space needs assessment that is available on the town website. The layout is color-coded so you can see the building's proposed space use with blue for police, green for ambulance, red for shared spaces, and yellow for public spaces. I will break down each department space in depth in the next slides. Combining police and ambulance services opens up more funding opportunities, and shared facilities lessen overall costs and ongoing expenses for both agencies. The yellow public spaces shown in the center here include a 24/7 open lobby with access to the reception and receiving area of the police department, a handicap accessible public bathroom, and access to the training room where public meetings, classes, and trainings can be held. Lanesborough Police have historically been working from inadequate and unsafe space at 8 Prospect Street. The temporary space at 545 South Main is not suitable for long-term use as it does not have space for officer workstations, adequate interrogation space, file and evidence storage, nor does it include necessary spaces like training room, shower, kitchen, and break room. The police areas of this building will be secured with key card access. The proposed plan has patrol space for 5 officers, a sergeant's office, an interrogation room within the investigator's office, an office for our police chief, adequate evidence and file storage. The wall between the public lobby and the reception area will be made of bulletproof material. A prisoner processing area is attached to a secure Sallyport for officer and civilian safety and confidentiality. Prisoner processing is on the opposite side of the building from the rest of the police spaces because individuals taken into custody would enter through the secured Sallyport with an officer to be processed and would not need to be brought into or through the other areas of the building. There is not a holding cell included in this plan as it would require increased staffing for constant observation, additional expenses like meals, medical treatment, and screenings. The sheriff has generously agreed to help by providing cell space when needed because he understands the limited resources we have available to us here in Lanesborough. Lanesborough Ambulance has previously been part of the volunteer fire department, but now they need their own space as they are a separate department of paid town employees. This proposed plan includes 2 heated ambulance bays, a day room, office space for our ambulance director, 2 bunk rooms which are required for 24-hour shifts, and a washer and dryer. The need for a shower and washer and dryer space may seem like small items, but it really opened my eyes when I learned that officers and EMTs who regularly come in contact with bodily fluid like blood, vomit, or feces, or have to enter homes infested with fleas or lice, currently did not have a space to clean themselves or their clothes. This means that they have had to take the bloodborne pathogens and contamination home with them to wash, risking exposing their own families. The bunk rooms are state mandated for 24-hour EMT shifts and will require a sprinkler system within. Bunk rooms will include soundproofing on the walls and doors so EMTs can sleep while the day-to-day continues in the rest of the building, and were designed with space in mind to include the use of bunk beds in case of future staffing expansion. While Lanesborough Ambulance currently is not a 24-hour paid service, this building provides the necessary space to allow Lanesborough to plan ahead for that growth in the future. The shared spaces are something I am really excited about, and something Chief Dirksen and Director Weber took into careful consideration when thinking about how spaces could be used by both departments in order to lower the floor plan and project costs. The original conversations with architect Brian Humes included 2 locker rooms, 2 kitchens, 2 break rooms, essentially 2 separate buildings that were attached by a public lobby. It would have been a lot more square footage than what we've proposed here. By combining the spaces, we've been able to cut significant square footage from this project. If we think back on the police building that was proposed for Laston Park, that was 4,500 square feet. Adding an entire other department with the ambulance should bring us closer to 9,000 square feet. And what we are proposing here is 7,300 square feet for this building. When committee members visited the combined police and ambulance building in Barre, Mass, we were able to see that the floor plan, what the floor plan looked like, and get an idea of how to better use the spaces in our proposed building. Their facility did include 2 kitchens, 2 locker rooms, and it ended up leaving a lot of unused space. The key shared spaces here are a unisex locker room, a training room, a kitchen, and a fitness center, as well as a copier area. The unisex locker room includes a private shower room, a private changing room, and lockers for personal storage, as well as a private toilet. The lockers will be used by both officers and EMTs. This floor plan includes space for 20 lockers, and as of today, Lanesborough has 10 officers and 11 ambulance staff. Policies will be put in place regarding changing inside the private changing rooms rather than in the open locker room to allow both men and women to use the same space comfortably and professionally. The original plan for a training room space was a regional training center that seats 40 people. Because there's high need across New England for such a space, this could be a revenue source for the town by hosting trainings other local departments would pay to participate in. This would also mean our officers would be able to attend trainings at no cost. After considering the possible costs of a larger training room and learning another local town was planning to include a regional training center in their building design, the committee decided to scratch that idea and focus instead on a smaller space suitable for in-house trainings. The training room in this floor plan seats 18 and will be used for required internal trainings for our Lanesborough police and EMTs that have previously cost money to outsource. Training room space can also be used to teach trainings to the public and other local departments like CPR, first aid, self-defense, creating a new source of revenue for the town, although not as much revenue as a regional training center would. The training room will also be used as an emergency management center for our emergency services personnel during natural disasters or other emergencies. This training room space will both save money and it will bring new revenue to the town. It is required for EMTs working 24-hour shifts to have access to exercise equipment. By making the fitness center a shared space rather than sticking some equipment in the back of an ambulance bay as many other towns do, the police can benefit from its use as well. There is extensive research on the benefits of regular exercise for first responders in preventing injury and helping manage the physical and mental stress of their jobs. The fitness center's square footage was originally mapped out as a police break room, but because of the nature of police work, they are not taking time during shifts to sit down for a 30-minute break, and the space would likely be unused. Instead, the committee transformed the square footage into a shared fitness center. There will be department policies about the use of the fitness center and the possibility of open hours for other town employees like volunteer fire department or town hall staff. Architect Brian Humes compiled this square footage comparison between the space needs assessment and the proposed building design to show the impact of using shared spaces. The proposed building design is smaller than what the needs assessment, which is based on our town's demographics and data, says our community needs. The needs assessment has square footage needs for our community at 7,560 square feet. A full fire suppression system would be required for a building over 7,500 square feet. By creating the shared spaces, we were able to lower the building's footprint and save money that would have been needed for a full sprinkler system. In order to qualify for USDA funding programs, we need to stick as closely as possible to the needs assessment to show that our project will withstand the life of the loan. The next few slides will cover the financial aspects of the proposed public safety complex. I want to talk a little bit about the Lanesborough Police and Ambulance budgets first and what taxpayers pay currently for emergency services. The Lanesborough Police budget for fiscal year 22 was $493,110. Looking at the fiscal year tax rate of $19 per $1,000 valuation, Lanesborough taxpayers paid 74 cents for police salaries and 19 cents for police expenses. That ends up being 93 cents of the $19.10 per thousand, or about 4.8% of the town's annual budget. Another $242,000 in police expenses are paid annually by the Baker Hill Road District at no burden to the taxpayers, covering the salaries and benefits of 2 of our full-time officers and half the cost of a new police cruiser every other year. The Lanesborough ambulance budget has been part of the fire department budget until recently, so these budget projections are based on fiscal year 23, where the total ambulance budget is $315,100. 1/3 of ambulance expenses are currently covered by user fees at no burden to taxpayers. This breaks down to 36 cents of the $19.10 per $1,000 valuation going to ambulance salaries and expenses. That works out to just above 2% of the town's annual budget. This means Lanesborough allocates about 6.9% of our annual budget to police and ambulance services. Yet these are the first line items often brought up when suggesting budget cuts. The volunteer fire department and senior programming are the only other departments with smaller budget impacts. Lanesborough taxpayers voted to staff our Lanesborough ambulance at the annual meeting in 2022. Prior to the meeting, the select board and ambulance director contacted Paid Ambulance Services to see if that option made sense for Lanesborough and found the costs estimated upward of $750,000 a year for a contract. A contract with a paid ambulance service does not guarantee a fast response time, as ambulance services are stretched thin across the state and the country. The projected project costs and taxpayer burden are 2 different numbers. Where project costs are less flexible, the tax burden will continue to decrease once the project has taxpayer approval and more funding becomes available. The projected project costs for the public safety complex are $5.9 million, with $4.7 million in hard costs for construction and site work, and about $750,000 in soft costs, including things like furniture, fixtures, and landscaping. These figures include a contingency of 10%, or about $600,000, that is added in as a safety buffer in case the costs of materials go up. Municipal buildings are subject to laws and regulations for construction, including adhering to prevailing wage. The cost estimates are based on the proposed site location and the building designs prepared by architect Brian Humes. We have secured $1 million in state bond money for this project that has passed the legislature in August of 2022 and will be released to the town once the project is approved by a taxpayer vote. If we subtract that from the total project costs, it puts the maximum tax burden as of today at $4.9 million. This is the worst case scenario number if we are not able to secure any other funding through grants, ARPA funds, state and federal funds, and out-of-the-box ideas the committee is pursuing. The committee is continuing to look at soft costs for ways we can lower them as well. The projected tax burden for the public safety complex is based on the proposed site and building designs and a USDA 40-year loan at 3% interest. The USDA has a grant and a loan program that Lanesborough can apply for. The grant program can cover up to 15% of the project costs, but is typically around $300,000 in an award. And grant funds are not guaranteed if we apply for them. If we apply for the low interest loan program, it would be based on the $4.9 million cost after subtracting the bond funding. Lanesborough qualifies for up to 40 years at a 3.7% interest rate. This interest rate is set until March of 2023 and may go up after that. Based on these figures, the projected tax burden for a home valued at $100,000 would be an increase of $45.80 annually. A home valued at $200,000 would see an increase of $91.61 annually. For a home valued at $300,000, the annual increase would be $137.41. And for a home valued at $400,000, the annual increase would be $183.21. Again, these projections are based on an interest rate that may go up after March 31st, and the annual loan payment on the town would be about $236,000 a year. By combining police and ambulance services, we have been able to decrease the square footage with the use of shared spaces and are open to more and better funding through grant and loan programs. This projected tax burden document is available on the town website for anyone who would like to see through it. Looking at the proposed building design and square footage comparison prepared by architect Brian Humes, we can see the project costs for both police and ambulance spaces for the public safety complex. The total internal square footage of the proposed building is 5,355 square feet, with 2,778 used by Lanesborough Police and 1,522 used by Lanesborough Ambulance. 1,055 in square footage makes up the shared spaces of the locker room, training room, kitchen, fitness center, lobby, and copier areas. Based on the projected tax burden as of today of $4.9 million and the 40-year USDA loan at 3.7% interest, we can see the tax impact of each department's spaces broken down. Lanesborough Police spaces make up about 71% of the floor plan, with an annual cost to taxpayers of $32.78 per $100,000 valuation. Lanesborough Ambulance spaces make up about 28% of the floor plan, with an annual cost to taxpayers of $13.02 per $100,000 valuation. This means a home valued at $200,000 would be paying $65.56 in taxes for police space and $26.04 for ambulance space annually. A home valued at $300,000 would be paying $98.34 for police and $39.06 for ambulance, whereas a home valued at $400,000 would be paying $131.13 for police and $52.08 for ambulance space. For the full life of a 40-year loan, a homeowner with a valuation of $100,000 will have paid $1,311.38 for police and $520.72 for ambulance space for this proposed building. A home valued at $200,000 will spend $2,622.76 for police and $1,041.44 for ambulance over the full 40 years. That breaks down to a homeowner with a valuation of $300,000 paying 11 cents a day for ambulance space and 27 cents a day for police space over the full 40 years of this loan. The proposed public safety complex is 7,300 square feet. Based on electric utility data of $2.14 per square foot for commercial buildings, it puts the annual electric costs at an estimated $15,622. For a heating system, mini splits have been recommended by architect Brian Humes. This cost would be included in the electricity costs. The building is perfectly orientated for solar panels, which would help to reduce the electricity costs. The site location falls within Lanesborough Fire and Water District, so a metered water system would be installed. The Water District has voted to waive their hookup fee of $3,000, and the estimated water usage for this building is low to average at about $1,000 annually. The estimated costs for phone and internet service are about $190 a month, or $2,280 annually. There is not yet a line item for sewer or septic, as there are preliminary plans in the works for a sewer line to this site, and those costs will be updated as soon as the information is available. This puts the estimated annual utility expenses for the public safety complex at about $1,500 per month. Lanesborough Ambulance has a paid staff on shift Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. These shifts are based on the times of day with the highest call volume. All calls outside this time frame are responded to by our ambulance director, requiring a volunteer to come and help drive the ambulance in order to respond. In 2022, Lanesborough Ambulance responded to 570 calls, up from 423 in 2021, and up again from 314 in 2020. 140 calls in 2022 were providing mutual aid to other towns. Lanesborough needed mutual aid from other services for only 15 calls in 2022. The calls where Lanesborough required mutual aid from other towns involved multiple patients on scene, where Lanesborough transported one, or our Lanesborough ambulance was on another call at the time. Mutual aid calls are billed at the same rate as calls within Lanesborough. Lanesborough Ambulance has not missed a call during staffed or unstaffed time since March of 2020. Providing mutual aid is required by law for all ambulances in service in Massachusetts. These numbers show how effectively our Lanesborough Ambulance is meeting the needs of Lanesborough residents, as well as aiding other local towns. Lanesborough Police are on duty 24/7, with at least one officer covering each of 3 8-hour shifts per day. Currently, the department is budgeted for 6 full-time officers, 1 full-time police chief, and 10 part-time officers. Part-time officers do not work regular part-time shifts like in other lines of work, but are typically employed full-time elsewhere and occasionally cover shifts in Lanesborough. Because of police reform changes, part-time officer positions are being phased out over the next 2 years. Lanesborough currently has 5 full-time officers, a full-time police chief, and 4 part-time officers on the books. Lanesborough Police respond to an average of 6,000 calls a year, responding to all 911 calls alongside Lanesborough Ambulance, as well as helping residents and doing patrols. That breaks down to an average of about 16 calls per day. The types of calls our officers respond to include, but are not limited to, citizens assist, alarms, theft, domestic disputes, mental health, missing persons, harassment, trespassing, neighbor disputes, motor vehicle accidents, intoxicated subjects, and vandalism. Other types of calls are officer initiated while the officers are on patrol, including situations like vehicle and traffic enforcement, property checks, and wellness checks. Officers also respond to walk-ins at the police station for the above items, as well as records requests, permits, and licensing. There are many towns in Berkshire County and across New England in need of improvements to public safety and municipal facilities based on old infrastructure and outdated spaces that do not meet current regulations or requirements. Lanesborough's public safety complex includes police and ambulance services, with the project cost for a 7,300 square foot building at $5.9 million and a tax burden at a maximum of $4.9 million. Williamstown built an addition to an existing building for their police department, costing $5.2 million for a 12,000 square foot building in 2016. With the rise of construction materials and costs, that project would be well over $10 million if it was built today. Williamstown is currently proposing a new volunteer fire station alone, with projected costs around $20 million. Their proposal includes zero carbon footprint green build, which I believe increases the costs. Lenox taxpayers have approved a $20 million, 19,000 square foot public safety building, including police, fire, and EMS services in 2022. Richmond Town Hall, Community Center, and Library are being built for $8.3 million. North Adams Police have had to move to a temporary station. The need for a new fire station in Dalton and a police station in Pittsfield have both been raised. There are funds available now that have never been available before and may not ever be available again for these kinds of municipal projects. Because of the steps this committee has taken the past year, Lanesborough is in a great position to acquire funding once our project has taxpayer approval. While neighboring towns' projects have different specifications, by looking at these numbers, we can see our project proposal is fiscally responsible and in line with other current project cost estimates. If we delay approval, we could lose out on funding as more local towns jump into the pool with their needs as well. The committee has secured some funding towards the public safety complex already and has put steps in place to seek more funding once the project is approved by taxpayers to move forward. Most grants and loans are looking for shovel-ready projects that have been approved by taxpayers in order to release funding. $65,000 in ARPA funding has been used to pay for the temporary police station's rent, furniture, and moving costs until August of 2024 at no burden to the taxpayers. The town has been given a gift of $150,000 from the Baker Hill Road District towards the land purchase. The road district was asked to contribute $50,000 towards the land purchase, and they voted instead to gift $150,000 to cover the whole property purchase. There will be a warrant article at the special meeting to vote to accept this gift. $1 million in state bond funding has passed the legislature in 2022 towards Lanesborough's public safety complex. Former town administrator Josh Lang contacted our local representatives and asked for funding when the committee was first formed last March. We can request more funding through this year's bond and are working with Representative Barrett and Senator Mark on this. The first steps for pre-approval for the USDA low interest loan of up to 40 years at 3.7% have been taken. They're following the space needs assessment, which is required for the USDA funding. Remaining state and federal ARPA funds have to be used by the end of 2023. Because our project has so many steps in place, Lanesborough is in a good position to get some of these funds. The committee is in continued conversations with local, state, and federal representatives, and there are talks of state funds being pulled together towards public safety buildings. Like the ARPA funds, Lanesborough is in a good position for this kind of funding because we have already taken so many steps to collect the best data possible for this project. Creative funding, including fundraising towards specific soft costs and requesting the select board earmark a portion of the new solar project funds towards the public safety complex, have been raised as well. There will be multiple public meetings where community members can ask questions about the project prior to the special town meeting where a vote will be taken. The special meeting has tentatively been scheduled for Wednesday, March 1st, but will depend on free cash being certified by that date. The committee has planned 3 presentations at the end of February and can plan more in March if the special meeting is moved farther back. This slideshow presentation will be shared at each public meeting, and there will be time for public questions about the project. Our scheduled public meetings are Tuesday, February 21st at 6 p.m. via Zoom, Thursday, February 28th, 1 p.m. with the Council on Aging in the community room at Town Hall, and Saturday, February 25th at 1 p.m. in the community room at Town Hall. All meeting times and locations will be posted and are open to the public, and more meeting dates will be announced as they are scheduled. Taxpayer approval is required in order for the public safety complex project to move forward. There will be a special meeting tentatively scheduled for March 1st of 2023. The committee is planning for at least 3 warrant articles related to the public safety complex, including a vote to accept the gift of $150,000 from Baker Hill Road District towards the land purchase, a vote to approve the purchase of 405 South Main Street, and a vote to approve the project to move forward. Taxpayer approval of the project is needed in order to have the $1 million in bond funds released to the town, and in order to apply for the USDA funding program, as well as other grants and funding sources. The wording shown here is just an example of the items to be voted on. The actual warrant articles will be made available to the public once they are written and approved. Here is a brief overview of the main points of Lanesborough's public safety complex project. Lanesborough needs long-term functional and professional space for our police and ambulance services. The proposed site location for this public safety complex is 405 South Main Street, and a gift of $150,000 from Baker Hill Road District will cover the cost. Combining police and ambulance services offers more funding opportunities and decreases the costs to both departments. The use of shared spaces has decreased the square footage and kept costs as low as possible. $1 million in state bond funding has been secured for this project already. The taxpayer burden at the most is $4.9 million as of February 2nd, 2023. Taxpayers will need to vote on at least 3 warrant articles at a special meeting in early 2023. Taxpayer approval is needed for the project to move forward and in order to secure more funding. The Police Station Building Committee meets on Tuesdays at 3 p.m. in the Select Board Room at the Town Hall as posted. The public is invited to attend. If you have questions about the project, please reach out to a committee member or email me at lanesborough.pdcommittee@gmail.com. Questions that are sent via email will be brought to the committee during a meeting to be answered so they can be recorded in our minutes. I want to thank you for watching, and I hope that this video has helped to answer some of your questions about Lanesborough's public safety complex. The committee hopes All right, thank you everyone for listening through that slideshow presentation. So I do have a couple of updates because the slideshow video was recorded on February 2nd. The special meeting has been changed now to March 9th. So it's been moved from March 1st to March 9th, and that will be at 6 p.m. at the elementary school, at Lanesborough Elementary School. And I am going to read through the warrant articles that have been finalized and approved by the select board. But I think before I do that, our ambulance director, Jen Weber, has to step off the call, and she wanted to answer some questions that she saw in the chat before she has to leave. So I am going to find her on here and unmute her so that she can answer the questions that people have. Just be patient for a moment while I search through people. There you are, Jen. All right.
Hi, everybody. So I am coming to you from the state of Florida. I'm finishing up a family vacation and I have some events that my parents have planned. So I do want to try to answer as many questions while I'm here. And hopefully, I know there's been a lot of threads and information that's been done on Facebook. And then, of course, Kristen's done a great job with all of the updates. But I'm just stealing questions from the chat. So one of the questions that we've been hearing a lot is why the ambulance needs to leave the fire department. We're growing. We're noticing that we're needing more space that's not available. The fire department is owned by the association, the Firemen's Association, and not by the town. So modifications to the building, if there was even room, would be at the expense of the association. There isn't room though. Fire department's restrictions and regulations are constantly changing, requiring more room, bigger apparatus. So what they would be able to gain from us leaving is more space, which would keep the association building and the fire department the way it is for longer. We still share staffing. We do have 24/7 coverage from Monday through Friday, from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. currently. It's important to note that the way that this is being handled now for 24/7 coverage is that I have been making myself available for the last 3 years to cover those calls 24/7. So when there isn't staffing on, I come, and then I have a couple of first responders that will drive and a couple of EMTs that still volunteer. So the staffing won't change. We are finding ourselves needing things like lockers for our staff to be able to lock up their belongings, which we don't have room for currently. The fire department has not asked us to leave. That information is not correct. But we do see it as a win-win for both departments to be able to move our space out, letting them regain space and letting us have room to grow for the future. It's been spoken about a lot of times, but this is a 40-year plan for the ambulance. So we're not talking about 24/7 staffing tomorrow. That's something that that would take a vote. We also, as our call volume increases, the enterprise is able to pay more into the budget. So we will get cheaper as we go respond to more calls. So it's really just that the spacing that we need currently to grow isn't available to us. And so this is a win-win. One of the things that Kristen talks about is the availability of grant money for public safety complexes, which requires to have 2 entities. So the police department and EMS. So if you remove EMS from this building plan, you decrease the availability for grants. There's most of the money that is out there is for public safety complexes. So by removing EMS, you wouldn't have that availability. And we do not currently have a plan that is just police only for this site. So that would be another extension of time to figure that out, really. And then you still really need to figure out what we're going to do with the ambulance at that time.
All right, thanks very much, Jen, for that overview. I'm glad you were able to stay on with us for a little while longer. So I'm going to read through. There are quite a lot of questions in the chat. If you have a question, you're welcome to post it in the chat. If you prefer to ask your question out loud, you can either turn your camera on, or there's a little function down at the bottom where you can click under reactions and click a little icon to raise your hand, and it will put a little hand icon up, so I'll be able to see that you're waiting to ask a question. So you're welcome to raise your hand or put a question in the chat. I'm going to start up at the top. A question: can you share more about what the committee learned from the visit to the Barre, Mass site? How does the size of our project compare to that station? Thank you. So that's a great question. I see there are a couple of questions about Barre, Mass, including how does it compare to our town? What is the population? So the Barre, Mass is right outside of Worcester. They are a little bigger than Lanesborough. Their population is closer to 6,000 residents. And I believe when we visited, their police chief said that they have 14 officers on duty. So their building is just about the same square footage as what we are proposing here. It may be a little smaller. It's probably about 7,000 square feet, if I remember correctly. I will look through my notes and find that exact answer. And they built their combined police and ambulance facility, I believe, 6 years ago, and spent only $3 million on it because that was the amount of money they were awarded by a local politician who had retired. So their community voted not to spend a penny more than that. And when we toured the facility, we learned that because of that cost restriction, they really had to cut corners a lot. Their building did not have adequate storage space. The design didn't include shared spaces like our building does. So it had 2 kitchens, 2 locker rooms, 2 break rooms, and it looked like there was a lot of space that wasn't able to be used efficiently. The ambulance spaces looked like they weren't being used at all. And it turns out that now, after only 6 years, they've outgrown the space, and the ambulance now is going to be looking to be part of a new fire station that's being built in Barre, and then the police are going to take over that full 7,000 square foot space. So it was a project that was crunched with money, and they really cut corners, and it was short-sighted. And now 6 years later, they're having to build a brand new building. So we really learned from what they had done, and it really opened my eyes to what we need to do in Lanesborough to not be in the same position as Barre, where we are going to be building another building in 5 years if we don't do this the right way now. Let's see. So the next question is, besides the Barre site, were any other combination sites visited? The Barre station was the only site that the committee visited because it was the only one that was close enough that was of a similar size to our population. So that was the only site that we ended up visiting. Yes, I see Jen's hand is raised. You have a comment, Jen? Oh, there you go.
I just wanted to pop in and answer some follow-up questions I'm seeing on the chat. Again, I'm crunched for time, so I'm not trying to talk over.
Nope, you're good.
Questions. Tracy, my salary is paid for 100% by user fees, and I am a salaried employee. So despite the fact that I am working 120 to 180 hours every 2 weeks, I get paid the same amount. So I'm just doing that out of my responsibility to the town. So I am not, my salary is not paid for by the town of Lanesborough. It is paid for by user fees 100%.
Right. Thanks, Jen. So the next question is, the fitness center should not be used while on shift. If someone is injured, that would be considered a workman's compensation injury. Insurance may require no use or a fitness trainer on site. This is what was brought up on the other expansion projects I've been on. So that is a good point. There will be policies for both the ambulance and the police crews, and that will include that, you know, officers and EMTs are not going to be working while they're on shift or working out while they're on shift. Those will be department policies that the chiefs will have to make for their staffs. There is extensive research that I am happy to present as well about the impacts of regular exercise in decreasing work-related injuries rather than increasing them, which is a common misconception. You know, when we take care of our bodies, we are able to stay healthier for longer. So I'm happy to present that information at some point as well. I can compile that and put it into one of the next select board meetings. This is a comment, I believe, about Barry, Mass. So a few thousand more people than our town. Was that taken into account when we designed ours? Yes, it was taken into account. So the needs assessment, which the full needs assessment is available on the Lanesborough Town website. And that needs assessment is created specifically on the data of Lanesborough. So that's our town demographics and our police and ambulance data, and then the needs projected out for the next 25, 35 years to make sure that this proposed building meets the needs of our town and the loan terms if we're able to get the low interest loan. So the population was taken into account when we did the needs assessment. And like I said previously, in Barry, Mass, they really cut corners and they needed a bigger building than what they decided to build. And now only a few years later, they're having to build a brand new, probably much more expensive building. This question is, can you post the plot plan, the lot with the building on it? That was included, a rendering of that was included in the slideshow. So let's see, I can pull that up again here. Just let me share my screen. Hang on one moment. So this is the rendering of what the building will look like on the parcel at the skyline. So this Route 7 will be over here on the left. This is the existing tree line. So there would be minimum site work here. There wouldn't need to be a lot of trees cut down, or there aren't any buildings that are on this parcel already. So this will be minimal site work, which keeps the costs down as well. The public parking will be here with the public entrance. This is facing the access road up to where the country club is up on the hill. And then the fleet parking will be around the back. And there are 2 exits for the emergency vehicles. So this can give you, it gives you an idea of what the building will look like on that parcel. We don't have a rendering, a detailed rendering, because that would cost an additional $7,000. And so the committee decided that it was more important to get these cost estimates than it was to get the rendering. All right, stop sharing that. Look at the next question. I believe Jen already answered these questions about the ambulance. The next question, please correct me if I am wrong. Bond securities have to be paid back, correct? So the tax burden is 5.9 million and not 4.9 million. So the bond money does not have to be paid back. It is a state bond. So it's money that the state has set aside every year. My understanding is that we requested no less than $4.9 million in the bond last year, and that number was decreased to just the 1 million that has been set aside for us. It cannot be released to the town until we have taxpayer approval. So if this project is not approved at the special meeting, that bond money will just kind of be on hold for the town once the project is approved. I believe it is held for a number of years, and then it goes back into the general fund where it can be dispersed to other communities. But that money does not have to be paid back. There are some questions about the mini splits. Those are great questions. When we asked the architect Brian Humes what kind of heating system he recommended, the mini splits were what he recommended for cost efficiency and for a good source of heat. So when we visited the Barry Mass Station, they did have mini splits, and they kind of told us that they don't recommend them because theirs had all not been maintained properly and were not providing enough heat. So we did ask Brian Humes about that concern, and he said he has had very good success with mini splits, that he was surprised to hear that the ones at Barry hadn't been working. So a full heating and cooling system will be astronomically more expensive than the mini splits. I guess that's something that the committee can get a cost estimate and present that as well, but the mini splits were what was presented as the most effective heating source for the least amount of money for this kind of projects. Oh, and it looks like this is an answer to the mini splits. Some mini splits will heat down to -15 with slight reduction in capacity. As long as they are sized correctly, they can be the only heat source. Thank you for answering that more eloquently than I did. The next question is just wondering about having 2 separate locker rooms for male/female/transgender/trans/ non-binary folks. We had considered originally 2 locker rooms, a male and female locker room, but the biggest issue with that is that you can't predict how many officers or EMTs of any gender you're going to have at any time. So you could have an entirely male staff and have a female locker room space that's never used. And that didn't sound like a very efficient use of space for this building. And so the chiefs decided that having a combined locker room was something that their both 2 departments could do professionally and safely. And so that's why this locker room is one shared gender neutral locker room for anyone who is on the EMT or police staff. And there are 2 private changing rooms. One includes a locker, one includes a shower, and one includes a toilet, so that people can change within those private rooms rather than changing out in the public of the locker room area. So this question is the special town meeting to only approve allowing the town to accept the donation from Baker Hill Road District and purchase the property? Are there other items on the agenda? There are some other replies here. It looks like someone posted the full warrant. I believe there are 10 articles on the warrant. 2 of them are related to the police station project, the public safety project. So I can read those 2 warrant articles to you right now. The first article is article number 2, and it is to see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to acquire by gift, purchase, eminent domain, or otherwise certain property located at 405 South Main Street, Lanesborough, shown on the assessor's map 235-19, being a portion of the property described in a deed recorded with the Berkshire North Registry of Deeds in book 1738, page 398, and further to authorize the Board of Selectmen to execute any and all documents to carry out the intent of this article or take any action relative thereto. The explanation is Baker Hill Road District has donated the amount of $150,000 to the town to fund the acquisition of this land. So this is the article to approve the purchase of 405 South Main Street. And town council did confirm that there is not a separate warrant article needed to accept the gift of money from Baker Hill Road District. We don't need to have a town vote to accept that gift, but we do need to have a town vote to approve the purchase of land. So a yes vote to this article means that the town can purchase 405 South Main Street for the purposes of building the public safety complex using the gift of $150,000 from Baker Hill Road District at no taxpayer burden. The gift from the road district covers the full purchase price, and site testing, which has been paid for using ARPA funds, can be done on the parcel in order for construction to move forward. A no vote on this warrant means that the town cannot purchase 405 South Main Street, and the gift of $150,000 can only be used for the purchase of land. The other article on the warrant related to the public safety complex is Article 4, and that is to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, and or borrow the sum of $5,989,100 for the design, engineering, construction, and equipping of a new public safety complex to be located at 405 South Main Street, including site preparation and remediation and all costs incidental to and related thereto, and to authorize the treasurer, with the approval of the select board, to issue any bonds or notes that may be necessary for that purpose, as authorized by provisions of General Law C-44 or any other enabling authority. And further, to authorize the select board to apply for and accept any forms of financial assistance that may be available to the town on account of this project, which amounts received shall reduce the amount to be borrowed pursuant to this vote by any like amounts. And further, to authorize the select board to enter into all agreements and execute any and all instruments deemed necessary to effectuate the purposes of this article or take any action related thereto. So this is the big article that's asking taxpayers to approve the public safety complex that's been proposed so that funding can be released to the town and more funding can be sought. The funding to be released after approval includes the $1 million bond that's passed the legislature in 2022. It includes applying for the USDA low interest loan that all the tax burden estimates presented are based on, requesting more money in this year's bond, seeking ARPA funds before the end of 2023, and starting to apply for grants and fundraisers to cover things like furniture and soft costs. So a yes vote means that the public safety complex can move forward and take the next steps towards construction and funding. The bond funds can be released to the town, grants can be applied for, fundraising can begin, more bond funds can be requested. The town can apply for the USDA loan, and the construction bidding process can begin. So once this project is approved by taxpayer vote, the proposal goes out to contractors, to construction companies, and they come back with their estimates. So my understanding is that estimates for these kinds of municipal buildings are coming back at lower than expected. So our project costs of the $4.9 million, it could come back at lower than that. So that's hopeful. I'm hopeful that that's what will happen after it's approved. And also a project manager can be bid out to be hired. So a project manager would be in charge of sourcing the lowest cost materials and making sure the project stays within the financial and timelines. A no vote to this public safety complex means that the project can't move forward. It likely means that the project costs will increase as interest rates go up. So that's why it's really important to have these warrants on the special meeting rather than waiting until the end of May for the annual meeting. There are some questions about the annual meeting. As I said, it has been moved to the 9th from the 1st, and this recording was done at the beginning of February. So I apologize for that confusing piece. All right, Jen, I'm going to unmute you. There you go.
I just wanted to, I've got 5 minutes, so I just wanted to very quickly address, just from a director setting for the shared locker room space. I know Kristen mentioned it in the project, in the presentation. Sorry, I've got vacation brain a little bit, but all of the changing that will be done within the closed off space of the changing area. So it's something that Officer or Chief Dirksen and I have discussed very thoroughly, and then something that we're both comfortable with our staffing, that locker room space is really just a storage area for them. And the changing that will be happening in a private space. So I have taken a lot of cultural diversity and gender identity classes, because I really want to make sure that everybody in the back of the ambulance or on my staff or anybody that I interact with in life feels comfortable with me. So it is something that I've taken a lot of time to understand. And that's something that we feel really strongly would be, totally fine for our settings. Because again, you're not changing in that open area. That's more of their storage space, their secured space to keep their belongings. But any kind of changing that would happen would be done in the private area. So, and that's a policy that we would both have in place.
Perfect. Thank you, Jen, for clarifying that important information. All right, the next question I'm seeing is, will the shared spaces still be built as it is in this plan, even if the ambulance is not part of the project? That is a very good question. If the ambulance is not part of this project, it will really, the whole project will have to be scratched and started again. And I know I personally would be very frustrated by that, because this committee's worked for nearly a year to compile all this information. And we've really done a lot of work to make this building as small and fiscally responsible as possible. If we think back to the proposed building that was set to be built in Laston Park, that was a police station only, it was 4,500 square feet. And with this building, we've added a whole other department. It should be closer to 9,000 square feet, and it's at 7,300. So the shared spaces were one of the ways we were able to keep that floor plan down by not including 2 separate locker rooms, 2 kitchens, 2 break rooms. And I think if we end up moving forward with just a police station, all of this that I've just presented, it becomes mute. We will have wasted money having the architect design these plans. It costs about $8,000 for every round of designs and illustrations that the architect does. So it would be pretty disappointing and fiscally irresponsible, I think, if we again chose to scratch this plan like has been done at Laston Park and at Prospect Street. And honestly, since 2007, when the need for a police station was first raised. So I think the shared spaces, if it was a police station only, it would look completely different than what we are presenting here today. All right. Thank you all for your patience. There are a lot of questions in here. I'm going to just try to do my best to read through every one of them. The next one I see says, much of the information in this presentation is inaccurate. The special town meeting is March 9th, of which the taxpayers will be asked to approve the actual spending for the entire project. My understanding is the land has already been purchased. I'm certain the moderator will correct much information that has been previously recorded and has since changed. So I did say that the date of the special meeting has been moved to March 9th. This video was recorded on February 2nd when the special meeting was set for March 1st. So the select board decided to move that date to March 9th. And that is the date now when the vote will be taken. My understanding is not that the land has already been purchased. It has to be approved by the taxpayers at the special meeting in order to move forward with that. And the reason the warrant Article 4 includes the full project amount of $5.9 million rather than the tax burden after subtracting the bond money is that town council had said that the full project cost needs to be included in the warrant in order to have those funds released to the town. That's how the wording works, and that's how the bond money works. So if we were voting on just the $4.9 million, we would be selling ourselves short of possibly $1 million for this project. And so we want the wording to be correct so that we make sure that when it's passed, it's actually what we need in order to build this building. Some comments about, it concerns me that our ambulance director is working that many hours. We will burn her out if this keeps up. That is a very good point. Thank you for sharing. The next question says, did you say that Baker Hill Road District provides 2 officers and 1/2 a cruiser per year? If so, that guarantees that funding will always be available. If it dries up, what then? So the Baker Hill Road District pays the salaries and benefits of 2 of our full-time officers every year, as well as 1/2 of a cruiser every other year. And so as long as the road district exists, those funds will be given to the town. It is a contract between the road district and the town. So if the road district goes away for any reason, those expenses will become a taxpayer burden. And that's my understanding of the funds from the road district. This is a comment. The land has not been purchased. This information is available at the Registry of Deeds. As you will see, the title is held by Skyline on 7. Thank you for clarifying that. The land purchase will have to be approved by taxpayer vote in order to be completed. This next question is, can the bond money be used towards a new plan for a police building only? The bond money was requested for the building of a police station. So I am unsure that it can be used for a new plan for a police building. Like I said previously, this project has had many iterations since 2007. If it had been built as a police station only at that time, it would have cost the town $700,000. So every time it gets pushed off, it gets more expensive. I personally feel it would be fiscally irresponsible and irresponsible to our first responders to try and push this project off again after all of this data has been collected. This is a comment that the community has already spent more than $200,000 taxpayer money on exploring Laston Park and Prospect Streets. And if we keep exploring, it will add more expense to the project. That is correct. I believe it was closer to $250,000 for the site work and the design plans to be prepared for Laston Park. I am unsure what the costs to have the architect design the 2-story building for Prospect Street were, but all of those costs were taxpayer burden. They were not used ARPA money or any grants that I'm aware of. So we really don't want to be in a position where we're pushing this off again and paying more money and still not having the building that we need. This question says, about future growth, Lanesborough Elementary School has exploded in students. I think we have gained 50 to 70 students since last spring, now at over 220. This seems to be an ongoing growth. This is wonderful for the town. This is counter to the long-term population trends. If we are at the beginning of a growth curve, can this building grow in the future? Having a design that easily expands should be considered. That is an excellent question. So this building is designed for future growth. So the inclusion of 2 ambulance bays and bunk rooms for 2 sets of staff. Right now, we only have 1 ambulance. So that's already built for future expansion if we end up having 2 crews on or 24-hour crews. And the parcel of land is 9 acres. This building takes up about 2 acres in this building design. So there is space on this parcel for future growth if we need to expand this building or if we need to build a fire station or another type of municipal building down the road. We will have town-owned land that is suitable to do that. Let's see, this is a comment, long-term with shared locker room, in my opinion, is no good, especially with gender diversity being something the Lanesborough police need to be better at. I'm not sure that I can answer that. It's more of a comment than a question, but thank you for sharing. Next question is, thank you for providing more detail about the ambulance. Is it true that more than 60% of our citizens are considered seniors? I believe the current senior population, I thought the last town demographics said that it was something like 75%, but I may be incorrect in that. It looks like a couple of people have said they've Googled it. Google says 38% are 60 years or older. The senior population is less than 60%, closer to 40%, but the upcoming age group of people are in their 50s. So 55 and over, I believe, is what the majority of our population is currently. The next question is, how many grant applications are ready to be submitted if the plan gets town approval? This is a great question. Right now, the town has the paperwork needed to start the USDA low interest loan. That's not a grant, but that process, if we can get that in, if the project is approved at the special and we can get it in before the end of March 31st, we'll be able to lock in that 3.7% interest rate before it potentially goes up at the end of the month. The grants that we're looking at now are smaller grants targeted at things like furniture, specifically furniture for the fitness center, because that had been such a hot button topic, and there are specific grants available for that kind of equipment. And there will be more grants available once the project is approved, things like public safety complex projects through FEMA and MEMA, which are the deadlines have already closed for last year, so we have to wait until they reopen again for this year. But once we have grants lined up, all of that information will be made public as well. All right, these are some comments about the road district. Oh, I think I already read those questions. Sorry, my apologies. This is a comment. Glad to see we are growing, but are these students choiced in or are they families residing in town? That's not something that I know the information about. And another person commented saying, unsure, but I think most have moved into the area. I think Lanesborough Elementary School should do a data presentation on what has happened, as I'm only going by hearsay. So that may be something residents would like to look into, some data for the elementary school. That's not something that I have any more information about. All right. This question, is there more grant money available with combined ambulance and police? There is more money available with combined ambulance and police, or a combination of any 2 or 3 public service programs. So that includes the FEMA and the MEMA grants that I mentioned a minute ago that are only available to public safety complexes as opposed to a police alone or an ambulance alone. This question is there a guarantee we are getting these grants? Grants are not a guaranteed source of funding. So that's why they're on our list, but they are not the priority. So the priority after taxpayer approval will be getting the $1 million in bond money released to the town, requesting more bond money in this year's bond. So we can request the full project amount in bond money. That does not mean that we will be awarded that full amount. It was explained to me that the bond money is kind of a fluid amount of money where you request the amount that you need. That amount can either be decreased or increased. It can sometimes be turned into a grant that can be awarded to the town. So that is something that we're going to work on as a priority, because that is money that you don't have to apply for a grant. That can be a very long and complicated process. The other priority is going to be seeking ARPA funds, because they have to be distributed by the end of 2023. So if our project is able to be approved at the special meeting on the 9th, it will be great timing for us to be able to access some of that ARPA money. I've been told that there is a specific fund being created in Massachusetts through the new governor's office that will focus specifically on municipal buildings, because there is such high need across the whole state for that kind of building. All right, Jen. Go ahead, Jen.
Really, I have to go after this, but I just wanted to address the comment about why EMS is leaving in Barry. It's really just a matter of the police are outgrowing their side of the building, and they are already planning to build a new fire station. So they are just making the most sense to find space within the brand new building to put EMS and allow police to grow into the rest of the building that was already created. So it's really just a logistics thing, to leave the police department where they are, but give them more space, and then allow EMS to be moved with the fire department to the new building that they're proposing.
Great, thanks, Jen. All right, there are a few more questions here. Okay, this one says, when we signed into this meeting, we were not informed we were seeing a recorded slideshow from the beginning of February. We, or at least I, thought this was a live session, so when March 1st was brought up numerous times, a lot of confusion was put out there and could effective voting if someone signed out after they heard March 1st. Will you be making it well known to those that think the voting is March 1st? It's actually March 9th. A lot of this seems biased and threatening to residents to say, if not approved, we are not being fiscally, financially responsible. I don't think we should be attacking residents or threatening residents that we are irresponsible. I think that the residents have the right to deny the project if they feel it is not a good fit. I did say that it was a recorded slideshow when the agenda was posted, and I also said it at the beginning of the meeting. I understand that people did sign in at different times and that could be confusing, but I have said multiple times that it was recorded on February 2nd. That was stated in the beginning of the slideshow as well. I'm doing the best I can with the information that I have, and there is not any threat in my mind that if this doesn't pass, that it means people are not fiscally responsible. Every voter has to make the choice that they feel is best for them in this project. And all I can do is present the best data possible. So, you know, when I say that this project will be more expensive if it's not approved at the special, that's based on the data that's been collected and the trends that, you know, projects are costing more money and interest rates are going up. It's also based on that we do have money lined up now that we could risk losing access to if the project is not approved. So it's definitely not my intention to make anyone feel that they are being threatened at all. This is just a presentation of the information, and taxpayers have to make the best decision possible based on that information. The next question, unless the mall owners and Target agree to continue the police funds, obviously it's a what if, but a heck of a lot cheaper than their current payout to Baker Hill Road District. I can't answer that question because it doesn't have to do with this project, but it seems like maybe that could be posed to the road district to get an answer about that. The next question, why is the need of a new cruiser every 2 years? Other cities, towns use their cruisers every 5 years. That is probably a question best answered by the chief. Are you on there, Rob? Yes. Okay, there you go.
I'm here.
Okay.
So we do have cruisers that we have 2 cruisers in our fleet of 4 that are 5 years old. It's the Baker Hill, again, just funds half of a police cruiser every other year. So they're in a rotation. So that when Baker Hill and the town split the cost of a cruiser, it just rotates a car out.
Perfect. All right. Thanks for clarifying that. All right. The next question is there a contingency in place where if no further grant money is found, can a yes vote be nullified so the townspeople won't be on the hook for the entire cost of the project? That's a great question. The committee did discuss having a contingency in the warrant, and we were kind of advised against it. It's a hard decision either way. I know it's a very big number, but we were kind of advised that if there's a contingency and the project is voted yes, and then we aren't able to get the funds, then it kills the project in the middle or halfway through construction, and then it will end up being a greater expense in the end. So that's why we decided to move forward with the warrant article for the full project costs at this time. Okay, the next question, when this committee was formed last year, what was the given task? How did an ambulance come into play? Wasn't it formed for a police station only? Who agreed for this committee to do more than just a police station? That's a great question as well. When the committee was formed, the purpose was to build just a police station. And then in August of last year, the need for an ambulance space came up, and the prospect of better funding with a combined facility also came up. And so it was presented to the select board, and the decision to move forward with a combined facility was made at that time. The next question, can you repeat why Barry Mass EMS is moving out to join with the fire department? I believe Jen had already answered that, but that is a great question. It's just that they kind of short-sighted themselves and ran out of space. The next question, why are there not any holding cells, interrogation interview area placed in the building design? So there is an interrogation interview room within the new space, but there are not holding cells because holding cells require additional staffing for 24-hour surveillance. They also require things like medical care, access to food and things like that. So that's why they're not included, because they would be a large additional cost. And we are lucky here in Lanesborough that we have the Berkshire County Sheriff's Department close by, where if there is need for a holding cell, that we can use their facility. The next question, is it possible to pay for a yearly gym membership for each officer EMS worker versus paying for additional space at the new building? Rob, is that a question that you can answer as well? I believe it is in the union contracts, yes?
Yeah, so there's already a benefit in the union contract that pays for a gym membership. The gym or workout area, I mean, it's a 10 by 12 room that was already in the design. We just said that initially we would put a couple pieces of, workout equipment there because it's been raised as something that the officers and the EMS staff would like to have at the facility, to work out either prior to their shift or after their shift. However, it also gives us that expandability. If down the road we need another office, it's a very small room. We can pull the workout equipment out and utilize that space without having to put an addition on.
Yeah, great. Thanks for that. And that, while we don't have 24-hour EMS service currently, and there's not a plan to go to 24 hours if as soon as this building is built, it does give the space for that. And for 24-hour shifts, it is required that they have access to exercise equipment. So again, this is planning for the future, for the next 30 years in Lanesborough, that this building will meet the needs of our first responders. Let's see. The next question, will the special meeting be on the outside board at the fire station? That's a good way to get the message out. I am unsure if it will. I assume it will, because they're really good at putting up important information. So I think that is a question that can be asked to the fire chief. And I don't believe that he is on this call right now, but that is a good question. The next question, is there a possibility of Baker Hill Road District donating more funds to this project? I had initially asked the road district to contribute $50,000 towards the property purchase, and they instead voted to donate the full $150,000. Excuse me, $150,000 to pay for the full project. There is not a plan to ask the road district nor any other private entity to contribute more funds to this project. The next question, so was the decision run by the selectmen to make sure it was okay to change from the original task at hand? I believe that is in response to asking about having the ambulance included in the project. And as I mentioned before, yes, it was presented to the select board. Next question, has anyone looked into whether we will need a new fire station in the next few years? I have spoken to Chief DeShane about the need for a new fire station after the select board had asked if it makes sense to also include a fire station in this building project with the police and ambulance. And the chief has said that there is not an immediate need for a new building for the fire department. They do have space in the building that they currently have. And if the ambulance is able to move into this shared facility, they will be able to regain the garage space for another fire truck there as well. If there is need for a new fire station down the road, as I said previously, there are 9 acres on this parcel, and there is plenty of space there to build a fire station if we need to do that down the road. The next question is, their police station only needs assessment available from the previous efforts? That is a great question. I believe it was posted on the town website, but I am unsure if it is still there, where on the website it would be. I'm happy to reach out to the town secretary and ask her if she can just share that with me, and I can post it onto the police committee page so that it's easy to access. Next question, have heard BHRD, Baker Hill Road District, has over $1 million in the bank. True. I don't know what the status of the road district's bank accounts are. That's not something that this committee is working on, so that would be a question for the road district. The next question, do you have access to what the USDA loan rates are after March 31st of 2023? I was not told what the increases would be, but when we spoke with the representatives from the USDA, they had said that the rates are set quarterly. So that means that they could go up at the end of March. I guess it doesn't mean that they will go up, but the way that the interest rates have been going up regularly, it seems like it's a good possibility. So having this on the special meeting, that was one of the main reasons why the committee wanted to have it voted on, to see if we could get it passed by that deadline and apply for that low interest loan. The next question is, how much in grant money beyond the initial $1 million can we taxpayers actually count on to reduce the approximate 5.9 million in costs? Have you added up the various grants you sincerely believe you have a chance of securing, and what will the ultimate cost be to the taxpayers? That is a great question. Right now, the only guaranteed amount is that $1 million in bond money. But I honestly think that with all of the steps that the committee's put in place, by reaching out to our state and local representatives, by talking to people at the USDA, and now that we know the process for applying for funds through the bond, that we can cut this project cost at least by half. So that's just me knowing the steps that need to be taken and being willing to take them. But the only guaranteed amount right now is the $1 million that will lower the tax burden to $4.9 million. This is a comment. Overall, I think this was well done. Thank you, Kristen. You are very welcome. Thank you all for joining and being part of this conversation. The next question, it looks like this may be the last question. If anyone has any other questions, please pop them in the chat now, and we can get this meeting wrapped up. The next question is, based on what has been said here, it sounds like adding EMTs is for future growth. What if we do not grow as a town? Would it be possible for a police station and then add an EMT if we needed to grow? Hopefully we do in the future, to show the drastic need for a bigger space for EMT. That's a great question as well. So as I said in the slideshow, we do have need right now for adequate spaces for both our police and our ambulance crews. So that is an issue right now in Lanesborough, that it's not just that there's need for space for our police for long-term, there is need for space for our ambulance as well, because the volunteer fire station, the building just wasn't made to house a full-time ambulance crew. So we really need to have a building that is specifically made for ambulance and police services. Again, if we move forward with only a police station at this point, it will exclude us from a lot of the funding projects, and it could end up costing more money if we then need to build a totally separate ambulance building down the road. There doesn't seem to be any situation where ambulance services would decrease. If you remember from the slideshow, the call numbers have almost doubled this year based on what they were just 2 years ago. So the ambulance doesn't just serve Lanesborough and Lanesborough residents, they serve mutual aid in other towns as well. So there is high need now, and it seems like the trend is going to continue to grow rather than decrease. All right, are there any last questions? Yes, so the last, let's see. Is mutual aid required? Yes, that's a great question. Mutual aid is required by law in the state of Massachusetts. So any ambulance crews that are on duty, if they get a call and it's in Great Barrington, they have to answer it. So any ambulance crews, that includes Pittsfield, North Adams, when they're on duty, they have to respond to every call. So it is required, and it does bring in revenue. Mutual aid calls are billed at the same rate as calls within Lanesborough. Last question. Kristen, Jen, Chief, and committee members, thank you so much. Obviously, you all have done a huge amount of work pulling this all together. It is clear you have thought and worked incredibly hard on this project, and it shows very well thought out plan. Well done. Thank you very much. And thank you all. Thank you for being part of this conversation. And if you still have questions, please join us for the in-person version of this presentation that will happen on Saturday in the community room starting at 1 p.m. where we will show the slideshow, and there will be time for public comment as well. And I definitely hope to see everyone at the special meeting on the 9th to vote on this project and all of the other important warrant articles. So thank you all very much.